Five Nights at Freddy's has been around for over 11 years, and ever since the beginning we've been scrambling around trying to find out the full story of the games. Some of us have gotten really close, meanwhile some of us have missed the mark, to say the least. So today I'll be talking about the worst FNAF theories I personally have ever heard. Before this video begins, I want to thank you all for the massive support that I've been getting over the past week. The love has been just overwhelming, and as I said before, it causes me to have a lot more motivation. My videos are going to be longer, the editing is going to be better, I can promise you all that. And boys, we are at the final stretch when it comes to getting 1,000 subs, okay? We're getting close. And boys, you know we are on a mission to get 1,000 subs before the end of the year, and I know we can hit that mark. So if you are not subscribed and you enjoyed this video and my other videos, please consider subscribing. Without further ado, thank you for clicking on this video, and let's begin. In 2014 for FNAF 1, we literally knew nothing about the lore other than just some newspaper clippings that were on the wall. So literally everything that we could possibly theorize about FNAF 1, and we did, was just a complete guess. We had no minigames, we had no purple guy, we had no Henry Emily, we had no springlock suits, we had nothing. So every little thing that could be linked to something that could be a tiny crumb of lore, we jumped on that shit like crazy. Which brings us to our first theory. Okay, I'm not gonna lie, I have no idea why people thought this was true. Even for the times, this was ridiculous. The theory stems from the fact that we thought that Foxy was a good guy because of the way he jump scares you, where he just whips around the corner. But the addition of people thinking that he's the phone guy is, that's a really big leap. I found a post on the Five Nights at Freddy's wiki that really explains the theory really well, and I'm gonna read out the whole thing now. I'm gonna explain it in short terms after I'm done reading it, so just skip to this timestamp if you don't want to hear me read it out. So this is a theory that I've seen around, but I've never seen it here, so I'll post it for more seasoned veterans of FNAF to discuss. This theory states that Phone Guy is Foxy in both games and never intentionally harms the player. In the first game, if you look at him too much, he comes down to tell you that it's alright, because he thinks that you're being paranoid. However, his voice box is broken, and all that comes out is a scream. Mike dies of fright. If you don't look enough, he thinks you've been hurt and comes to check on you. Again, you die of fright. In FNAF 2, Phone Guy tells you that flashing the light will stun Foxy. In reality, he told you to do that so you would flash him if you were alive. If you have the Freddy mask on, he thinks you're an animatronic that killed his friend, the player, and attacks you. If he doesn't see the mask and you don't flash him, he assumes you're dead and kills the quote-unquote attacker, which is, of course, still you. Also, Phone Guy repeatedly calls Foxy his favorite in Night 3 of FNAF 2. In this call, he asks you if you saw Foxy in the hall, almost like he's bragging. Now, I know this theory has a lot of flaws, like in Night 4 in the first game, as well as many other things. But oh well, maybe you guys can fill in the flaws in your own way. This is just a neat theory that I saw. Have fun. So, like, right out of the gate, one of the first things that this guy says just does not make any sense. He says that Foxy goes to check on you, but his voice box is broken, so all he does is scream, which would also mean that every single other animatronic in the pizzeria's voice box is also broken, because they all sound the same. Another thing is that he's saying that, oh, well, Foxy just goes to check on you. Okay, that's fine. Usually when I go to check on my baby sister if I'm babysitting her, I don't sprint down the hallway. He also talks about FNAF 2, which I did not think that this theory actually lasted until the second game. I thought it died off pretty quickly, and it was just kind of like, oh, you guys remember this stupid ass theory we had back in the day? But I guess we did believe it for a while. But let's break FNAF 2 down. Okay, so they're saying that Phone Guy is Foxy because of the specific directions that he gives you when it comes to Foxy. And I'm sure that they were thinking, oh, well, how would he know about these tricks on Foxy unless he was him? Which again is a huge leap in logic, because not only do we find out in FNAF 1 that Phone Guy has worked that night shift so he would know, but he also regards that Foxy is a twitchy animatronic. He is an aggressive one. He also says, I'm not sure if the Freddy mask will work on Foxy. And in the wiki post, he says Foxy will attack you because he thinks that you killed his friend and you're an animatronic. So he knows about the Freddy mask, but he'll see you in a Freddy mask and still kill you.
What?
It just doesn't make any sense for so many reasons. It's insane. But again, you have to give these people grace because this was 2014, okay? We didn't know anything, but still, it's just like, how could we think that? I guess it can be justified in the sense of, like most of the people that believe this were like 9 years old like me. But this guy seems like an adult, and it's just, dude, you're dumb. Obviously, I'm kidding, but it's just like, bro, we were coming up with the goofiest shit back in the day. That's really all there is when it comes to this theory, so that brings us to our next theory. Now, if you were around for Sister Location, this theory would have been very popular. You definitely would have known about it. And to be honest, unlike the last one, this one's more understandable. It didn't really rely on the giant loopholes that Foxy being phone guy did. It more was just like we were just missing a couple puzzle pieces that would come in later games. And unlike the other ones that I'll be covering in this video, Scott Cawthon himself actually responded to this theory, but we'll be getting into that later. So the strongest piece of evidence that people had for Miketrap was this minigame. Now, although you would think that we had really solid pieces of actual lore for the 5th game, we really didn't. We didn't know anything about Michael. I don't think we even knew William Afton's actual name. All we had was the purple sprites. So man being purple equals big bad guy of the series, because who is the only character that we've seen be purple? William Afton, the purple guy. And what happened to him? He was supposedly spring-locked and turned into Springtrap. But maybe not, because we do know that this is Michael, but now he's a purple guy, so what the hell? Now, this theory was basically debunked when it came to Pizzeria Simulator because of this animatronic, which is referred to as Scraptrap after William was burned in FNAF 3. Now, he is also referred to as William Afton, so it is confirmed that William Afton is Scraptrap, which is also supposed to be Springtrap, but obviously Scott could not make it that simple for us, so he had to make the models look completely different. But again, that wouldn't make sense even for FNAF 3 because of these reasons. You could say, okay, well, Scraptrap is William Afton, but Springtrap is still Michael. Okay, well then who do we play as in FNAF 3? Oh, we play as some random security guard. Why is he staying there for all of these nights while he is being hunted by animatronics? Would you not just leave? The lore is way too complicated to just have some random placeholder character that you play as. Not only that, but in Sister Location, if you beat Custom Night Golden Freddy mode, you literally get a cutscene where Michael Afton is talking to Springtrap directly, talking about being at the Sister Location because you play as him, which means that what? Springtrap was just walking around the Sister Location, beating these knights and flipping up his monitor to make sure Baby doesn't get him, which is a animatronic possessed by his daughter? No way. Not only that, but we found out in FNAF AR that Michael Afton and Springtrap sound completely different. Now obviously FNAF AR came out way after Sister Location, but I only bring that up because people still, I mean, you know, obviously a major minority, but some people still believe this theory, and I don't really understand why. It was, you know, believable up until Sister Location, and then it just got kind of old and stale, and the theory really never got anywhere, and nowadays it is one of the most disprovable theories like ever. It was around this time that Game Theory had released what was so-called their final FNAF theory, which was obviously bullshit, and for the first time Scott actually talked about this theory because Miketrap had stirred up a lot of drama. I'll read out the post now. I don't usually comment on theories or timelines, but I want to this time. This is a very satisfying and important episode of Game Theory. There have been some points of contention in the community lately, especially since Sister Location Custom Night, that have caused some members to leave, theorists to quit, and frustrated emails to be sent. Some of these issues were simple misunderstandings with the story. Others were maybe just things that I didn't leave enough clues about. They became things that I felt that I needed to answer with a new game, but now those things have been answered. By MatPat. Obviously it's not 100%, but he really came through with his community, I think, during a time where everybody needed him. I won't go through the video point by point, but I will say this. For those of you who are really upset about the idea of Miketrap, or upset about the idea of Purple Guy literally being purple, or hung up on 1983 versus 1987, watch MatPat's video and breathe a sigh of relief. Like I said, it's obviously not 100%, but he really hit this video out of the park. This post would not make Miketrap bandwagoners very happy, because the video in question, being the Game Theory Final FNAF theory, does not support the Miketrap theory, and Scott Cawthon says, if you want to know the truth about it, watch this video. This theory was debunked long ago, and if you still believe in it, I really think that you just cannot handle being wrong and you're just coping at this point. Listen, this was not a bad theory, and I actually think that it was canon in the beginning. But dude, Scott, if you're listening, and this was true, and you had gone through with it, that would have been some total bitch shit. That is some full-on Tony Soprano cut into black before he gets shot type bullcrap ending. All of this lore with William Afton and Purple Guy and Michael Afton finding out what's going on with his dad and Springtrap and all these murdered children, and they're trying to find out who their killer is, and they're killing night guards. All that stuff, just for it to be a freaking dream, that would have single-handedly been the most sellout bullcrap blanket save ending I have ever heard in my entire life. Thinking about it just pisses me off. But basically it stems from this. In almost every single FNAF game, and I think the Dream Theory came out in FNAF 4, every single time we beat a night, we would hear the sound of a grandfather clock. Now obviously working in a pizzeria, it would most likely be an alarm. It wouldn't really make sense for a grandfather clock to be the correct sound. But what if we weren't actually within a pizzeria? FNAF 4 had rolled around and you play as a child who is having hallucinations of animatronics in his bedroom. They aren't real. And if you go up to the far left hallway where Bonnie would be, you could see that there is a grandfather clock at the end of the hall. And every time you beat a night, you are teleported into a minigame where you play as a child and his day-to-day life. His brother would hide in his closet and scare him with a Foxy mask, similar to how Nightmare Foxy does within FNAF 4. It's rare, but sometimes when you go into Fredbear's Family Diner, you could see William putting somebody into a suit. Maybe that is where the inspiration in a child's mind of William stuffing kids into suits came from. Not only that, but you also see a little girl playing in the park with a bunch of toy versions of the animatronics, and Chica is missing her beak. The only animatronic to remove her beak is called Toy Chica. And obviously everybody knows about the infamous clips of MadPat reading out the hints that Scott was giving to MadPat in one of his live streams. Again, I genuinely think that MadPat did get this right, and this was the intent when it came to the early games. But dude, holy crap, thank God he did not go through with it, because that ending would have sucked. This theory wasn't bad because it wasn't true. What's bad about it is that it was probably true at some point, and that would have blown. Now, I've actually known about this theory for a very long time, but I only figured out that recently a lot of people seem to take it somewhat literally. To sum up the origins of the theory, it really only stems from the UCN cutscenes where Toy Chica is depicted as this high school girl who obsesses over her fellow boy classmates, and she obsesses over them to the point where she must have them. She invites them over to her house to do homework and stuff like that, and it's implied that she either murdered them or kidnapped them in general. Now, this theory obviously stems from the fact that most people thought that Toy Chica is a stand-in for William Afton, and this is a metaphor for William Afton obsessing over children within the restaurant and then manipulating them into coming into the back room where he would kidnap them and or kill them. And I actually personally think that this is true. I think that that is actually the point of the cutscene. But, as the FNAF fandom always does, you gave them an inch and they took a mile. People started tracing this theory back to the Tales of the Pizzaplex novels, and obviously we're not going to get into whether the novels are canon or not. There's no way to know at this point. But one of the stories within these novels was called Didophobia, where William would kidnap kids and put them in a sleep experiment, which would be what FNAF 4 is. Now, within Didophobia, it becomes clear that you are not William Afton in the story. You are reading it from the perspective of one of the victims. Now, these victims are separate from the 5 missing children's incident, and although I don't really know how we got here, some people thought that the person you're playing as is Chica or Susie, and because the, I guess, pattern of William Afton and Toy Chica within high school days are similar, and because this is Susie, that Toy Chica is William Afton. I mean, I really just don't even know how this even started. And also within this theory, it is implied that William had diaries for each victim because Toy Chica did within the cutscenes, but that has literally never been talked about ever. Now, I could be getting a lot of this wrong, but again, this theory is just so convoluted, and not only that, the pieces of evidence that this person makes to make this theory that pieces of evidence are not even real. Like how I said William keeps diaries, or how we are somehow playing as Susie within this story, even though that is never confirmed. And I actually debated putting this theory in this video because it has some weird undertones. Because the people who made this theory are saying that the way that William Afton kidnapped his kids for the sleep experiment and the way that Toy Chica was kidnapping dudes, you know, to, I guess, kill or kidnap, were the same. But if you watch High School Days, which is the Toy Chica little cutscene series, she is doing this so the boys would fall in love with her. That's kind of concerning because, I mean, William Afton is a grown man, and obviously, you know, killing children ain't any better, but this would also imply that he's an EDP. So I don't think that Scott would put that in his story. I don't think that the person who made this theory had any intent to like make the lore weird or anything like that. I just think that they were really just jumping the gun, and and they were just like, well, this is true, and if it is true, well, then Scott put that in their story. I don't think their plan was to make William Afton a pedo, but I guess that's just like kind of how it fell into place. And it always reminds me of that funny clip of Daco saying, Toy Chica is William Afton. Because that's what it was. It was a joke, you know what I mean? It was like, okay, obviously she could be some sort of stand-in for William killing the kids, that's fine. But taking it so literally to the point where William could be shadowed as like an EDP is kind of insane. But again, as I said before, you give them an inch and they'll take a mile. You know, if you say that, okay, this could be a stand-in for this character, this could be a metaphor for this character, there is going to be a chunk of the fandom that just take it literally. And although I don't always see that as a bad thing, you know, it definitely made, interesting theories like Miketrap being real or something like that. I think that you have to really be careful with it, because not only because of stuff like this, but also, if it does wrap around well and that ends up not being the actual intent of the lore creator, it can cause like a huge just like tsunami of confusion. But that's really about it for this theory. I think that this person really just saw the metaphor of Toy Chica being William Afton within the high school days, and they just kind of took it too literally. But that's really, kind of it when it comes to the theory. So this brings us to our fifth and final theory. I never really understood this theory, and I really think it just stemmed from people trying to give William a redeeming quality, even though he is clearly depicted as just like the most monster a monster can be. And although I don't blame them for trying to, give him a redeeming quality, I don't think it was, A, necessary, or B, like, possible. So let's break down how his children's life go. Michael constantly bullies his brother. His brother is constantly crying and being terrified about everything around him because Michael, William's other son, is basically constantly abusing him. Elizabeth is constantly alone while her two brothers fight. She later dies because of William's own creation, where he is trying to kidnap children and he was not around to save her because he neglected her. And not only that, even if William is the one that is talking to Evan or the crying child through the yellow Fredbear plushie, really, dude? Your kid's only friend is a tiny little plushie that, yeah, it might be you, but I think that the kid would rather know that it's you who is actually talking to him rather than a tiny bear. Not only that, but at the end of FNAF 4, where Fredbear is talking directly to Evan while he is in a coma and he says, "You're broken, I will put you back together," there is a lot of debate over whether this is William or Michael, and I really think it's Michael, and I think that it is supportive of that theory in Sister Location, where Michael is talking to Springtrap and he talks about going to get Elizabeth within the Sister Location and putting her back together, just like he said to Evan. And I don't think that it has been completely debunked, and I don't also think that it is a really bad theory to say that William is the Fredbear plush, but I also would say that that's still a neglective father. That sounds like the same thing as, well, my dad never shows up for my birthdays, but he sends me letters. That just never made any sense to me, because let's break this down. on. If William is the Fredbear plush, and he is in the crying child's actual life and involved with his son, whether his son knows it or not, why is William willingly letting Michael constantly bully Evan? And you might say, oh, well, you know, he's just not around at that time. You know, he can't just jump through the Fredbear plush and grab Michael or anything like that. Well, most of the bullying is going on at Fredbear's Family Diner, which is also where the Bite of 83 takes place. And if William is so, you know, preoccupied with his company and his restaurant, then why was he not going to grab Evan out of Fredbear's mouth if he is always at that restaurant? There's literally no way you can spin this to make William redeemable. Evan dies because William isn't watching. Elizabeth dies because William isn't watching. Michael is able to basically kill Evan and bully him relentlessly because William isn't watching. Basically, anybody who tries to say that this theory is true, if you bring up the lives of William Afton's children, it is just a continuous dunk on anybody who thinks that this is true. That's gonna be it for today's video. If you remember at the beginning of the video, I talked about us hitting the 1,000 subscriber goal, and now that I've done editing the video, dude, we are almost at 1.1 thousand subscribers. The 1,000 subscriber special will be coming out soon. I just wanted to put this video out, you know, first, just so, you know, I can appeal to that algorithm. And you guys are just so awesome. I mean, that Springtrap is Perfect video has almost 20,000 views and over 1,000 likes. That's insane. The fact that I see like 1,000 subscribers on my channel is like surreal. I truly cannot thank y'all enough. You guys mean the world to me. I mean, like, I just cannot believe that I'm blowing up like this. I'm gonna keep posting and see if I can keep up that momentum, because I mean, this has just been awesome. So just thank y'all. I'll have a link to my Twitch, Instagram, and TikTok in the description. If you guys want to go follow those, you know, you totally can. You don't have to if you don't want to. You guys just watch my videos. You know, that's really all that I want. You know, a little goes a long way. So, yeah, thank you for watching, and goodbye.